Okay, so you sent us this story, and it's pretty creepy. It happened 15 years ago, but it's clear that it still really gets to you, even after all this time. That tells me that, well, this wasn't just your average spooky story.
You know what really struck me? The detail that you remember even after all these years? It's almost like your brain just took a perfect snapshot and saved it.
You were on a typical summer break camping trip with your friend and his parents. Lakeside campsite. Pretty idyllic, right? Days spent swimming, evenings around a campfire. You know, the kind of memories you think you'd want to keep forever. But then, in the middle of the night, everything changes.
It's amazing how our brains process fear. When we're somewhere safe, somewhere familiar, like a family camping trip, I mean, your guard is down naturally, you're ready to relax, not looking for danger. So when something like this happens, something that just shatters that feeling of safety, it just flips a switch in your brain, both physically and mentally.
And you wake up to a man's face peering into your tent. He's not just looking in, he's staring right at you.
The details you described really got to me. The wide, unblinking eyes, the messy hair, those slow and deliberate head movements. It's classic predatory behavior, like what we see in the animal kingdom. Think of how a cat stalks its prey, using these subtle movements to intimidate and confuse before it attacks.
That's a pretty chilling comparison. But it makes sense, I guess. Like those primal instincts would be in us too, right?
Yeah.
So that moment, looking at this creepy guy, your body kicks into survival mode.
Yeah, exactly. The amygdala. That's the part of your brain that deals with fear and threats. It basically goes haywire, flooding your body with all those hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, getting you ready to either fight or run. But there's also a third option that people often forget about: freeze.
And that's what happened to you and your friend. You were both frozen in fear.
Freezing is a really complex response. It seems passive at first, but it's actually your nervous system actively choosing this strategy. Sometimes staying perfectly still is the best way to avoid being detected, especially when you're up against something bigger and stronger than you. It's a gamble for sure, but evolutionarily speaking, it's a gamble that's worked for a lot of species.
So your brain is basically trying to decide what to do in a split second. Fight, run, or freeze. And in your case, it went with freeze.
It's incredible how fast these ancient survival mechanisms kick in. It really shows you how strong our evolutionary heritage is, even in today's world.
Then suddenly there's a noise from the bushes and the guy vanishes. Like he was never even there. Your friend's parents search everywhere, but they find nothing. No footprints, no signs of a break-in, nothing to show how he got there or where he went.
And that's where this story goes from just plain creepy to something truly eerie. The lack of any evidence just plays into our need to find explanations. You know, we as humans crave closure, and when we don't get it, it can be unsettling, to say the least.
It's like a puzzle, but some of the pieces are missing. We try to fill in the blanks, make a story that makes sense, but here the pieces just don't fit.
And that's where the real psychological impact hits. You're left wrestling with the unknown, with the very real possibility that this event goes beyond any rational explanation. It's no wonder this has stuck with you all these years, like you're looking into this void. And we as humans, we have to find answers. We're driven to make sense of everything around us. But sometimes those answers just aren't there.
And that's what makes your story so powerful, so thought-provoking. It leaves us with these questions, these what-ifs, the kind that keep you up at night.
You mentioned that this experience has made you afraid of camping, like that night left a mark on you, changing how you feel about being outdoors.
Yeah, it's like this shadow that follows me whenever I even think about going into nature. And it's not even just camping. It's affected how safe I feel in general, even in normal, everyday situations.
That's pretty normal after a traumatic event. It's not just about the event itself, it's about how it affects your whole life. The way it changes how you see things, how you act, even who you are.
So how do we balance that with our desire to be in nature? I mean, we're supposed to find peace and relaxation outdoors, not fear and anxiety.
That's the big question, isn't it? How do we enjoy the wilderness while still understanding that it can be unpredictable, even dangerous?
It's a problem a lot of us face. We want the escape, the beauty, the adventure, but we also know there are risks.
And those risks are even bigger when you're in isolated areas, away from the comforts and safety of civilization. Your story really highlights that.
So how do we deal with that? Is it about finding a middle ground, a way to enjoy nature without letting fear take over?
I think it starts with awareness, recognizing that fear is a natural response. It's our brain trying to keep us safe, but we have to stop it from controlling our lives.
So it's about finding that balance, acknowledging the risks, but also knowing how to manage them.
Exactly. It's about being prepared, knowing about the area you're visiting, the potential dangers, packing the right gear, letting someone know where you're going, and trusting your gut feeling.
It's like having a mental checklist, a set of rules to deal with those what-ifs that pop into your head. But what about the mental side of things? The lingering fear, the intrusive thoughts. How do we deal with those?
That's where techniques like cognitive reframing can help. It's about challenging those negative thoughts, those worst-case scenarios that we tend to imagine. Instead of focusing on what could go wrong, try to think about the positive aspects.
It's like changing your perspective, rewriting the story in your head. But isn't that easier said than done, especially when you're dealing with a deep-seated fear?
It takes time and effort, but it's definitely possible. Sometimes getting professional help can be really beneficial. A therapist can give you tools and strategies to deal with anxiety, to work through traumatic experiences, and to feel in control again.
It's encouraging to know that we're not helpless against fear, that we can learn to understand it, manage it, and eventually overcome it.
Exactly. And remember, overcoming fear doesn't mean it disappears completely. It's about learning to live with it, to know it's there but not let it control you. It's about finding the courage to push your boundaries, even when your instincts are telling you to stay safe.
Because sometimes the best things in life are on the other side of fear.
And your story shows us that even when we face the unknown, even when we go through unsettling experiences, we can still learn and come out stronger.
It's crazy how this one creepy encounter has totally changed your view of nature. Before it was this like pure escape, but now you see these shadows lurking beneath the surface. Do you think you have a more realistic view now, or has it kind of ruined the magic a bit?
I think it's really interesting. Like, this experience has added another layer to how you see the natural world. It's not just a place of beauty and peace anymore. It's also a place where weird stuff can happen. It's like you've gained a deeper respect for nature's power and mystery.
Part of me wishes I could go back to how I saw things before. But I think you're right. It's about finding that balance between appreciating the beauty and knowing the dangers are real.
It's kind of like realizing a road has thorns. It doesn't make the rose any less beautiful, but it does make you more careful when you're holding it. You learn to appreciate it, but also respect its nature.
And in your case, the thorn was this encounter with a stranger, someone whose motives are still a complete mystery. We've talked about the psychology, the survival stuff, but we still don't know who he was or what he wanted.
And maybe we never will. Sometimes the most unsettling things are the ones we can't explain. They make us realize that there are things in this world we just might never understand.
It's like we're programmed to find answers to connect the dots. And when we can't, it leaves us feeling uneasy and incomplete.
And that feeling can actually be a good thing. It challenges us to accept that not everything has a clear explanation. It pushes us to think outside the box, to consider different perspectives, to think about possibilities we might have ignored before.
So maybe the real lesson here isn't about finding a definite answer, but about learning to be okay with not knowing everything, to embrace the mystery.
This whole thing, as unsettling as it was, has really changed how you see yourself and the world around you. It reminds you that even when you're scared and unsure, there's always something to learn, something to gain.
It reminds us that life is a journey of exploration. It's about constantly facing the unexpected and adapting to the unknown. And sometimes the most important lessons come from experiences that make us question everything. Experiences that push us outside our comfort zones.
So next time something freaks you out, try to look at it with curiosity. What can you learn from it? How can it help you grow? Embrace the mystery, and you might be surprised by what you find.
This deep dive has definitely given us a lot to think about. Thanks for sharing your story with us and for being so open about how it's affected you. It really shows the power of personal stories and how important it is to explore the complexities of being human.